Welcome to the weekly Cosmic Astro or Astro Cosmic. We call it something like that. Here with Radiant Creators and Fiona Aedgar. And we're here going to talk about, the stars for the week and the cosmic weather for the week, touch on reincarnation, and of course, everybody's favorite, the plague.
Hi, Craig. How are
Hey
you?
there. Oh, I'm doing good, running around. Had to go find my headphones. It was one of those moments where you go, crap, where are my headphones? No, I'm having fun. I would say that as Thomas Sheridan did call it, I think he called it the psychic weather. I tend to call it the cosmic weather. We all know we have different words for it, but it's been intense. It just seems like there's just waves of fear cruising through. There's optimism, there's hope, there's beauty. It just seems like we are in the midst of a bit of an evolutionary leap for humanity, and within it there's lots of chaos because that's not going to happen easily. And I guess I'm just getting used to being a sensitive person during during my transcendence. How about you?
Yeah, the fear is something that I've been really picking up on, especially the past couple of days. But interestingly, the fear seems to have switched from the virus to 5G. Like my news feed today is just like literally every second post is some kind of, fearful 5G article or video. So it's interesting that there's been a switch there. Personally, I think everyone and the cat's granny is aware of 5G now. So yes, there's no need to keep spreading this over and over again. If people really are so worried about it, then they should try and do something about it. I mean, I know right now we're in lockdown, but write a letter. Write a letter to your parliament or member of government that represents you locally. I know that they probably won't get to it for a while, but instead of just like sitting at home by the keyboard, sweating and freaking out about 5G, it's something more constructive that you could do with your time.
Absolutely. And at this time, I think it's very important. It's important all the time. It always has been all through history, and it is today just as relevant, I guess, as it always has been, and maybe even more so. I think a question people should ask themselves is, you know, did I live today? Did you experience life? It was like Joseph Campbell when asked, the great mythologist, what is the meaning of life? People would ask, and he says, there is none. It's a stupid question. He goes, but I understand what you're asking me, and I'll answer you in the context that you did ask. And he would say, it's to experience life. And when you experience life, you'll know its meaning. And I think so many people, I would really recommend, are you experiencing life? I mean, are you connected to it? Go for a bike ride, go fly a kite, go play with your children if you have those. Throw a stick for your dog, pet your cat, take care of your goldfish. You take a long walk. Do your hobbies, whatever they might be. Everybody has something that interests them that connects them to life. And I always look at it like this: is that if you lived today and you die tomorrow, well, you won. You know what I mean? It's like, make sure you get some life in before the end. I do see a lot of people who are fearful about, of course, the plague and 5G, etc. But is there a point to your existence anyway?
Yeah.
People need to ponder that. Oh,
Yeah, they do. And like, we really need to put things into perspective here. Yes, 5G is probably harmful, but there isn't really a lot that we can do about it. And our ancestors, several generations ago, their biggest fear was not having enough food to eat, not being able to feed their families. And of course, in some parts of the world, that's still going on. So, in terms of, in comparison to that, I think that we just need to get on with it and man up and, just stop this fearfulness. It's just very unhealthy.
absolutely. It's a great book by Dan Carlin, and it's funny how you walk into the Amazon store, which is definitely, a globalist outlet. Here's what you're supposed to think. You walk in and there's like this altar to, deep state socialism and such. So in the midst of all that, there's this little book that kind of somehow cunningly got itself in there by Dan Carlin, a great historian, and it's called The End is Always Near. And it's a great book, and he just talks about how all through human history, the end has been right around the corner. Here in our current reality, it is really a rare time in human history where most of your kids live. you know, where people in the same household as you are not dying of plague. Where you're not worried about the Mongols killing everybody in your city for sport. Like ultimately, isn't that we're soft? But I think there's something really good to look at our ancestors, and that'd be a great one if people want to connect to life, experience life. Like Dan Carlin's book is a great thing to read. Get into paper. Many of us have forgotten what paper feels like and sounds like and smells like. Get into a book again. And yeah, if we research our ancestors, I mean, a lot of us are there is a sort of a neo-Aboriginal movement where we're becoming, that's the whole like paleo food idea and things like that. We're looking back in history and finding out when were we strong, what made us strong, and sort of like becoming that neo-Aboriginal, because our Aboriginal ancestors were so much more badass than we are, and we're afraid of a 5G tower down the street. Well, I mean, it's amazing how many of our ancestors where it wasn't uncommon to like lose a limb throughout the course of your life, and you never went to a dentist and and things like that, and you're taking
Yeah.
care of your dying sister who's got the plague and you don't know it's contagious. You think that like Jesus didn't love her or something. I mean
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm Irish and my ancestry is Irish, Scottish, and also some Norse as well because the Vikings, they settled in Ireland. My ancestors wouldn't have been scared of 5G. They would have burnt it down. It's just come on, guys, like really. And actually, ancestry, it's a really good time to kind of ponder over the spiritual beliefs of your ancestors and kind of using that energy to empower you on a spiritual level. I mean, that's what I've been doing as well as some past life work, which I believe we're going to talk about later.
Yeah, and that'd be a great segue into it. So I know we wanted to talk about reincarnation, and definitely that falls into, well, our ancestry. But did we want to go over the, I guess, stars for the week? And I guess we already have been
Sure.
kind of going over the cosmic weather, but we'll sort of follow our little format.
Yep.
All right.
O-
So what do we have in store for the week, stars wise?
Okay. So tomorrow, Saturday, the 4th of April, we have a Mercury conjunct Neptune aspect. So this is when the fake news intensifies and it becomes even more difficult to separate fact from fiction. So we should try to be really cautious about information that comes to us at this time. It's likely to be deceptive or it's the same old thing that we've been going through. We are just, we're still clueless, even with all of the vast amounts of information that are thrown at us every single day. We still don't know what's going on. So that's going to intensify a bit tomorrow. We may get some news about the virus. It's getting worse, it's getting better. I am unable to say whether this is true or not. So everyone, I think most people are going to be in the same boat. So just detached from social media, detached from the TV. So when Mercury conjuncts Neptune, it's a good day to meditate and go within, but also we'll be more drawn to films, movies, and other works of fiction, reading a book, just getting lost in a good story. That's going to be much more appealing and just give you more pleasure than reading the news or watching the news. So also tomorrow, Venus makes a nice trine, which is a positive aspect to Saturn. So relationships should be going well tomorrow. We feel very committed to our partners and our family, and we're able to take a straightforward approach to our finances. So it's just a good day for that, for being with your family, spending time with them, and just being grateful for what you do have. So then we go on to Sunday, the 5th, and this is a really big day in astrology. Jupiter actually conjuncts Pluto. So Jupiter and Pluto are two of the big daddies in the sky. They're both in Capricorn right now. And this is an ongoing aspect that will occur 3 times this year. So the first time it's the 5th, and then the second aspect is on June 30th, and then the final one is on November 12th. So when something happens 3 times, we'll get the first the first aspect, we'll be getting a taste of what's to come. So this is a really important conjunction, and possibly we can expect to see even more control from the government, more restrictions placed on us, but overall, there's going to be more fear, like we just talked about. There may be big changes within the financial structures and the banking system. So, this is going to be for the rest of this year. We're going to see that. We're going to see huge changes. So when these two planets are in conjunction, their energies are blended together. That's what a conjunction is, and they become something different and much more powerful. So much of this focus is going to be on power, control, and finances. So then, the next major aspect that we have is on Tuesday, the 7th of April, and we have a bit of a tricky aspect between Mars and Uranus. There's a square happening between them, which means that the energy is clashing. This is a dangerous aspect, and we should take precautions on this day, as the risk of violence and accidents is a lot higher than normal. There may also be problems with electricity or the internet. Also, on the same day, we have a sextile between Mercury and Pluto. So we'll be having some in-depth conversations with people around us. We may hear enlightening news. So try and stay focused on just communicating with your friends and your family, and don't do anything risky. So on the 8th, we have a nice sextile between Mercury and Jupiter. So Mercury, the planet of communication, making positive aspects to these two planets. It intensifies communications, we make it good news, and something that was previously hidden comes to light. So this is going to be a global thing. So on Wednesday, the 8th of April, we have a full moon. So this is another big event this year, or this week actually has a lot of big astrology events happening. So it's going to be an important week. The full moon is happening at 18 degrees of Libra, and it is a super full moon, which means that the moon appears to be more visible to the Earth. And it does seem to concentrate the energy more, and it just makes it that bit more potent. To be honest, it's a bit of a mixed bag. It has a few positive aspects, but it does contain the previous astrology that I just spoke about, Mars square Uranus and Jupiter conjunct Pluto. The full moon is also making a loose square to Pluto and Jupiter, and full moons illuminate life areas which cause changes and endings. I would expect the quarantines to continue in many countries, and possibly we may be looking at stricter punishments in place for breaking curfews. This also signifies that people are getting restless and they're starting to question the official data for the virus. I've noticed a lot of that. So, this is also going along with Mars and Aquarius. Mars and Aquarius fights for its freedom no matter what. And we are seeing that. People are starting to do that. So, the best way to get through this period, and the energy will last for about 2 weeks, just go inwards and concentrate on personal positive hobbies and interests. So, the last aspect that we have for the week is a nice sextile between Mars and Chiron, and that just indicates that if we focus on healing our bodies, the world. If you're into energy healing, it's a good day to practice that, and just be gentle with yourself, because things do tend to get a bit crazy around the full moon. Everyone's senses are heightened, it's more difficult to sleep. So just try and chill and take it easy.
What an amazing roundup. And one of the things I definitely want to mention is, of course, Fiona has a Facebook and has YouTube, of course, and a website, and all those are linked to in the show notes. And you do put a lot of this info out throughout the week. You do videos and updates and such. So people definitely follow Fiona because this never stops. But it's great to have the roundup here and talk about especially what's happening in the coming week. Well, Mars in Aquarius, when does that actually? I heard you say that. When does it actually take place?
Yeah, Mars is actually already in
Okay.
Aquarius. So
Mm.
we are, that's when we started to notice the that's when we started to notice people kind of being rebellious.
When did that? If when did that go into Aquarius? How long is Mars actually in a sign?
It went into Aquarius a couple of days ago. I believe I can't remember the
Oh,
exact
that's
date.
fine. A couple days ago. Good enough.
Yeah, so that was whenever we started to see people starting to question things and just that kind of restless energy that we're kind of picking up on now. The people are wanting to revolt. So Mars stays in a sign for about 5 weeks.
5 weeks. All right.
Yeah,
So that's really useful. I mean, everything you were mentioning is useful, but Mars definitely that molten energy and that somewhat well definitely fiery, of course, and Mars, of course, god of war, obviously. Mars is Aries. I guess is ruled by Mars, right?
that's right.
Yeah, so just anybody who's got an Aries moon or rising or north node, anybody with strong Aries in your chart, you probably know that they're always ready for some action. They're combative, to put it lightly, but they're
Yeah.
also kind of the child of the zodiac, and so it's really a complex sign. It's not simple at all, but it's definitely a phenomenal amount of energy that's showing up ready for the fight. And so to have Mars in Aquarius for 5 weeks at this time. You've got
Mm,
Aquarius. Aquarius is that futuristic um, truth seeker,
yeah, that's right. Yeah,
and
it's not.
yeah, and so Aquarius wants to. That's like pure lightning bolts. That's like some say that we moved into the age of Aquarius back during when they did the first nuclear test. That a huge explosion of energy would kind of represent moving into the age of Aquarius. Some say that, but sorry, I think I cut you off there. But yeah, so to me, this is an incredible time for truth seekers, people who want to know what's really going on, to find out. It seems like you have a bit of celestial help right now. That's some very, very powerful energy. I think Mars, the planet, of course, and of course also Uranus, and of course Aquarius. I mean, some will think that Aquarius is kind of this like passive nerdy character who's just into like being futuristic or something like that. And I would say, well, that's kind of true, but also Aquarius is not at all a passive sign.
No, absolutely not. No. I mean, Aquarius is the sign of the rebel and the freedom fighter. So Aquarius is usually one step ahead of everyone else. And they hate to see, they usually stand up for the underdog. They hate injustice and things like that. So, no, they're definitely not passive. They're quite the opposite. And with Mars in Aquarius, people are not going to be passive about this. Yeah, I wonder what's going to unfold over the next few weeks, to be honest, with this transit, because I think someone in China said, a client of mine who is actually Chinese said that they're starting to revolt over there, and try and break the curfews.
Would not surprise me because they can only handle so much of what's well being locked down, and also like we don't really know what their perception is. I don't really know what people on the street in the city, etc., in China, how they feel, what they know or don't know. It's kind of a mystery to me. I know no more about them than I do what's happening in North Korea. You could say some countries are sort of, they keep to themselves, or there's a big firewall, you might say. But definitely with Aquarius, you have Mars in Aquarius. Well, globalists, you get ready because you got it coming because Mars is entering Aquarius, or it just entered Aquarius. Aquarius is always one step ahead, full of energy. It's charged up by Mars. It's the natural rebel, and like one nice thing about Aquarius and being one step ahead is, as we know, globalists might be evil, but they're also, thankfully, dumb. And so now,
Yeah.
and so now, so Aquarius is one step ahead of you globalists. So, you're gonna, you got it coming. And Mars
Yep.
and yeah, Mars and Chiron. How could a person relate to that in their chart? Would Mars being in Chiron, would that kind of heat up Chiron where it's naturally in their chart, or or
Um, well, yes, when you look at a transit, first of all, it's going to be an individual thing for everyone, because we all have different charts, we all have different houses, different planets in there, in different places. And when you look at a transit, the first thing you need to identify is which house it's moving through, because the houses represent different life areas, and it's going to be different for each person. But yes, I would also look at Mars in the birth chart. So that's where your Mars energy is naturally going to be focused within your own life. And that would ignite, a Mars transit would ignite that to a certain extent.
okay, perfect, perfect. And when exactly did Mars is Mars going to go through Chiron, or aspect it? You mentioned.
Oh, Mars is going to make a nice sextile to Chiron. So that's coming up. Let's see. I had that written down on my little piece of paper. So that's going to be this week. It's going to make a nice aspect to Chiron.
Okay, this week.
Yeah, let's
That's perfect.
see. Yeah, it's hard to remember all of the
Oh
like
no, it's
exact
fine.
dates. Yeah,
No, it's fine.
yeah. So that will bring us healing on some level. You know, Chiron is the wounded healer, but Chiron's gifts are very much ancient wisdom in terms of health, healing, um, metaphysical stuff. So focus on that, and it'll make things a lot better.
That sounds great. Okay, well, so I think that kind of covers the Astro for the week. So what do you? Let's see. What are we picking up? Which of course, really, I think the stars ultimately kind of lay it out this week. But what are you picking up in the cosmic weather, like right now and in the following week? What do you feel going on in this, turgid, like hurricane of of fear and grace and everything else?
Yeah, I think honestly, we're kind of going to be seeing more of the same. Within the next week or two, like there seems to be, just as much control placed upon the average person, with the same fear energy present. But I'm also seeing, like we discussed, a ripple of something, a ripple of rebellious energy. This is definitely waking up a lot of people for sure. I mean, people in their 70s are not believing what they see on the news. It's hard to believe anything I saw an article last night where, I don't know, some news channel in the States basically admitted that they had used footage of a hospital in Italy. So obviously someone caught them and then they had to admit that they'd done it, but they said it was like an editing mistake or something. And it's just, come on. It's absolutely terrible. But I have put some cards here.
Yes,
Um,
let's look at that.
yeah, so I've put some tarot cards to see what the upcoming energy is going to be like. One card that I've been pulling over and over again, and I know that other people have been pulling the same card. It's actually the death card, but it's not, ooh, the death card, it's not all scary, and it doesn't actually mean a physical death, although it can. It's about transformation. And really, if you've been going through a really difficult, hard time, getting the death card is welcomed. It can be the end of a disease or just something that you were not enjoying in your life. So when that happens, it is good to get that. Now, it's something interesting that I just pulled here is the world. The world card signifies a completion of something, the completion of one cycle. And I also have judgment here. The judgment card is an interesting one. Usually see this as redemption, getting help from some kind of external force of energy, whatever you see that, whether it's karma, a god, but it's kind of getting help. We're going to get help from other places, um, other than humans. And with these together, I think that we are, I don't think we're ever going to go back to the way that we were before this virus hit. But I do see a way out of it. It is going to end. We are going to go back to relatively our daily schedules are going to return to normal. But some part of us is never going to be the same again. And personally, I think that's a good thing. There's been a real shift in consciousness here, and we need to welcome that and let go of any fears and just move on. So those were the cards that I pulled. Um, so together they signify endings, getting help from the spirit world and other beings, the end of one cycle, and the start of something completely new.
Wow, I like it. Well, it does seem like the situation is that we're in today is really bigger than governments. I think it's something we may have touched on before, but uh, if we are kind of in the midst of a evolutionary leap, I mean, people look at that in many different ways, but we do have more, cosmic energy coming into the Earth right now because of the grand solar minimum. But we also are going through, oh, and I forget what it is, but when you go through one of the kind of like plasma arms of the universe, it charges us up. So historically, we are, if you just look back at past cycles, we definitely are in an evolutionary leap time. That never comes without some turbulence. So strong cards like death and the world and judgment, they all make sense to me. And just a feeling I get from what you were saying is, like I say, I really think it's bigger than governments. So many people right now might think, wow, this is a totalitarian crackdown by governments. And oh, it certainly is. I mean, they do it whenever they have a chance to do it, and so do globalists and everything else. But something I would just invite people to speculate is, what if this is bigger than them? In a sense,
Hmm.
like they're reacting to it also. Oh, reacting to it in their predictable ways, but I'm not sure if they necessarily all know what's going on. So I would just, put forth that possibly not all the globalists are necessarily sure of what's going on. So these cards really ring true for like everybody, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the world leaders, they're going to be more clued in than the average person, of course, but there's, especially on Trump's part, there seemed to be a bit of confusion there in the beginning when all of this hit. But yeah, let's just see what happens. We're not going to be locked up forever. We are going to get out, and we've learned some lessons while being locked in our homes.
Well, definitely. Well, with Mars and Aquarius for 5 weeks, I mean, people are not going to want to be locked in their homes. And if they are, you can be darn sure they're going to be seeking for the truth, doing
Yeah.
research. So, globalists, you can't win whether the people are locked in or not, because that's a big one. Very, very powerful, Mars and Aquarius right now. So,
Yeah, for
mhm.
sure. And yeah, the judgment card I also feel is, there's a divine energy that just runs through everything, and it's more powerful than all of us. And I don't think that, it's not like it's, the Abrahamic God sitting on a cloud and casting lightning at people that don't go say prayers at night. I think that it's an intelligent energy, and I think that it's stepping in. I don't think it interferes with humans a lot. We make our own choices, we make our own karma, but this time I think that it's stepping in to protect us.
I think so. I think so. I do think that there is a, divine guidance for the world and for the individual. And so, there is a point to Earth and there is a point to the evolutionary process, evolutionary range that exists on Earth for humans and animals and everything and the planet itself. And, if you could say the dark forces were to take over to too great an extent, then evolution wouldn't really be happening. So I just look at it like um, it's not that I have a confidence that uh, evil never wins, because it certainly does quite often. It wins a lot of battles, but it's not going to win the greater war, you might say, because then there's no point to the earth. And I think so. I think the earth is I have the same kind of feeling, belief that it is, let's say, managed, if that makes sense. Just to
Yeah.
ensure that it continues to be the curriculum that it is, that it's supposed to be. So yeah, I don't think that the dark forces, as they are trying to right now, that exist on many levels, can really make it very far. Because if they do, then, well, like I say, there's no point to the Earth's plane, and it has a plane, and it's managed. So yeah, I think that we're seeing the hand has begun to intervene.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And this kind of dark energy is being crowded out and will be eventually will not be able to exist because everyone's consciousness is expanding, our frequencies are raising, and something so dark and evil cannot exist where there is only this, advanced consciousness. So it's a really good sign that so many people are questioning things, waking up, not believing in what they're being told. It's a really good sign that we're actually really winning the war here.
I do see that, and it's a time where you really see who people are, where they're coming from, because when they get pressured, when they get manipulated, you oftentimes see things you don't usually see. Like I am really surprised to see more people than I would expect saying, who the crap ever asked Bill Gates what we should do? Who cares about his opinion? I don't
Yeah.
care. I don't. Who asked him? What is his standing? What gives him the authority? Why is anybody looking at him as a world leader? As someone that we should be listening to,
Mhm.
especially, and then you look at, just do a little research and what his foundation gives money to. I mean, come on, people. And so I think that people are getting that whole, Mars and Aquarian energy really going, wait a second, who asked you? I didn't,
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. Yeah, it's quite bizarre the way he's been popping up on Facebook and the BBC News. It's like, where did you come from? Why are you so, why is he being interviewed all of a sudden over these huge global events? Like, what has he got to do with any of this? It's really sinister.
Exactly. He's basically like kind of the globalist UN supreme leader. You know what I mean? It's just like he is really, quite literally, he is like the globalist world president.
Yeah.
But there is no
Yeah.
standing. The world did not agree to that, So they can sit
Yeah.
there and they can push him as that, but without world agreement, it's just not going to happen. And so when he starts saying like, "Hey, everybody, y'all need like Nazi style like tattoos on your forearm with like your vaccine ID and all this," and people start going, "Wait a second." Then the next thing you know, you just mentioned to your friend who's waking up, you know what the Georgia Guidestones are, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's just it's all got a bit bizarre. It's all got a bit like a really bad movie. Here's Bill Gates. He's a world expert on viruses, and he says that you should get a microchip. How did it get like this? It wasn't like this 5 years ago, or maybe I was just not seeing it, but it just seems to have someone has pressed the fast forward button on this really bad sci-fi movie.
No, they certainly have. And it lends one to believe that, yes, maybe good things are happening. Maybe the cosmic rays are coming in. People are going through a time of evolutionary leap. And the globalists, the dark forces, however one might define them, I call them empire, kind of put them all in a big bucket and call them empire, as a term Neil Kramer kind of coined. And yeah, I don't. We're just going through some turbulence. So I look at it like I try to be hopeful, and I think that humanity is going through. They're like getting ready to break the sound barrier, you might say. Like before you're in a jet, and before you break that sound barrier, I hear it's quite the bumpy ride. You know, and for a long
Yeah.
time when we were approaching it, pilots would back off, and like people were working on trying to figure out what's going on. Why does it get so turbulent? People thought that when you broke through the sound barrier, since it hadn't been done, that you just it had been done by like bullets and rockets, but never by a plane. And so People figured it would just fall apart, the person would die, they'd go back in time, like who knows, all of these theories. But until I think it was Chuck Yeager just said, because he was a proud redneck American drinking a Coors beer while he was flying his jet, he said, screw it. And he just, he just punched it and figured, I'm going to break the sound barrier or die. And he broke the sound barrier. And everybody thought the plane blew up because of the sonic boom. So I think humanity really is getting ready to, I would like to think, go through a sonic boom, but they're going to have to go through this turbulence first and shake off the empire and, like, once and for all just kick its ass. And people, I don't wish any ill on Bill Gates, but what I wish is that everybody one day just finally says, will you shut your hole? Nobody asked you. Good God.
Yeah, exactly. But we're getting there. We are. We're getting there. And, if we all continue to work on ourselves, then we'll get there a lot quicker.
And the important thing for every individual is it is an individualistic thing. So whether all of humanity gets there, which maybe it all will at one time or not, it's not really your specific problem. It's all about your evolution. So for every individual listening, you have this opportunity to break that sound barrier, to see what the next evolutionary leap is like. And you can do it. The background actors on the planet, they may or they may not, but you can. You know what I mean? But that's my thing. I like the thought of everybody making it, but ultimately, life is a individualistic act.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Which kind of leads us on to the
Reincarnation, ancestry.
yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Go for it.
Um, well, I found I've done a lot of past life work. I had a few kind of weird dreams whenever I was a kid, and I've had some spontaneous memories. And I've always found it really helpful to do past life work. You can meditate, or there's some really good videos on YouTube to help you along the way. But if you do past life work and you go into, maybe you experience trauma, or you're having a relationship with someone that you have a karmic tie to a past life with, it actually can change this real time. It can help heal your physical body. I did a really interesting past life meditation where I actually found myself as a really early Christian monk. So way back in the early times of Christianity on this island of Ireland, and I was a man, which happens. We've been everything. We've been men and female animals, and for some reason, I don't know why I did this, but it seemed to be under the influence of someone else that I was quite close to. I poisoned the monks, and I actually watched them die. So the reason why I did this, first of all, is that I wanted to find out why I have so many food allergies and why my body reacts so violently at times to certain foods. It's something that I've suffered with all my life. So I wanted to use the past life therapy to get to the root of that and heal that. And that was the first lifetime. So I watched these monks die knowing that I'd caused it. It was pretty gruesome and gory, and they were groaning and, bleeding, and it was just awful. And I felt so guilty. I felt really guilty at the time as they were dying. So somewhere along, since that lifetime, my body and my soul kind of remembered that trauma and connected food with with the sickness and illness that I caused all these people. It's too early to say yet whether it's going to be a long term, it's going to benefit me long term, but I believe that it will. I've been seeing small improvements since I did that.
And how did you do the past life regression? How did you get into the mode to experience it?
I it comes pretty easily to me now, so I just can fall into a meditation with with the intention of seeing something. But for anyone that's just learning, I believe there is a man called Brian Weiss. I think it's Weiss or Weiss. You can find his videos on YouTube, and he does like a guided regression.
That'd be fun. Well, there's definitely while you're on lockdown and quarantine, you can get into your past lives because I think that sounds fun, and it's true. I think people do begin to have experiences of them, And like I know an experience I had not long ago just came from, I think people tend to call it just a download. It tends to be like the term people have coined recently, where something just comes to you and it feels like a download. It feels like you're downloading data. You know, it's kind of and as people get more accustomed to them, they realize the validity of it. And so as we are opening up, as that cosmic energy is coming in, we're having our personal evolutionary leap and our larger evolutionary leap. Um, yeah, I had the kind of remembrance of a past life where you might almost say past lives, where I've been like a soldier forever. Um, and I really had this how it's affected the way I move, the way so much about my life, the way I live, because, and then also how we don't exactly know how our ancestors fought, like even in like 1500s, 1300s, we don't really know what that looked like. We think we do, but we don't. And so it just made me, it was a very enlightening experience. And then we carry that ancestry, that personal ancestry, in our bone marrow, in our life. Like we keep reincarnating it, or aspects. There just tends to be these things we're carrying with us. And for me, it was being a soldier. And then for me, even coming from a military family from way back, uh, I joined the military as a youngster, but then I did not have kids, and I, I guess you could say that bad habit stopped with me, if you know what I mean. It's kind of one of the realizations I had as far as looking at past lives. Like, hey, if you're in the military, great. If you want to be in the military, that's just great. But for me, in my ancestry, I guess you would say, um, I guess I learned a lot from continually being a soldier, but I guess you could just say I, I burned that particular ancestry out of my bone marrow. I completed that. I will be the last, basically. Like that will not happen again. That I will not continue that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right, because the past lives are stored within our DNA and are heavily influenced by that. So, I come from a military family as well, and one of the memories that kind of came to me spontaneously was being involved in a battle that took place in Ireland, and it was the most bloody battle that there's ever been on this island. They were basically slaughtered and not allowed to bury their dead. It was just really dark, horrible stuff. And I kind of felt like I'd been part of that. And also, that was something that was contributing to my health issues. So it can be so useful if you really go back into those past lives, and it can just lead to healing. It's also a really good thing to do if you kind of those relationships where you know that the person is really bad for you, but you have that really strong, compelling attraction to them. And, I think the New Age people would call it a twin flame, but I don't believe in those. Um, yeah, that can be the past life thing is always going to show up. The connection is always going to show up in those type of relationships. So sometimes if you just go back into your past lives, maybe you were their parent and you took a vow that you would always look after them and you wouldn't leave them. That's why you feel so connected and glued to them in this lifetime, and that's why you can't break away from them. So sometimes simply undoing something that you said with such conviction in a past life can free you in this lifetime.
Yes, and yeah, and when if you've lived a little, I mean, and you have had those relationships with people that you knew were bad for you, if you're a bit adventurous in life, then you do realize that in those relationships they can last different amounts of time. They can last decades. They can last hours. They can last months, a year, whatever. Um, when you finally walk away from that, you look at it and you realize, wow, uh, I've always disliked the word healing because it's so new agey. You know what I mean? But it is a good way of looking at it. You figured things out. You are healing, I guess you could say. If because I've had that experience where you can have that ridiculous attraction to somebody, and you might even realize that wow, this person is a complete psychopath or a narcissist at best or whatever. You're like, all right, but that day that you walk away from that is a very important moment because it didn't just happen when you look at your ancestry and reincarnation. That didn't just happen now. I mean, this is, if nothing else, that is you are finally completing something that you were born with in your bone marrow, in your DNA. You are definitely completing, like for me, like no kids in the military, and I would not endorse it now. If anybody asks me what I think of it, I'd say I'll talk you out of it. But but with that said, like it's the same with that relationship. It's just you might not even know exactly what you're burning out. You're finally getting rid of, but you are when you go, okay, this is not for me. I'm out of here. Boom. Huge multi-lifetime, huge ancestry. Who knows? And that makes working on your stuff more fun because you start putting it in this way broader context.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. I mean, the most recent lifetime that I've seen, I was actually in America. I was an American, and I was this young girl, totally in love with this man who was really, really bad for me. And this happened actually in the 1960s. 1968 or 1969. I saw it all so clearly when I was meditating. And I was pregnant out of wedlock, which, back in those days was kind of a more negative thing. And I really wanted him to marry me, but he kind of refused. And, he was cheating on me, such a charming fellow. But we actually died. We died together because we were arguing in his car and we got kind of in a head on collision with a truck. And I was actually born with a dislocated hip in this lifetime. So, an ex that I was with in this incarnation, he had done some past life work with his friends before we met, and he actually saw exactly the same lifetime. So, yeah, we ended up getting together again in this lifetime, and it still didn't work out. But yeah, seeing that lifetime really helped.
Yeah, and it helps put things in a greater context, and it's a good thing because it's like Rudolf Steiner, somebody I certainly have learned a lot from and continue to. He talked about having spiritual vision, and I really think that as you go along, you'll begin to see that trauma in other people, especially trauma, their issues and such. And I would just say that Rudolf Steiner, he is proof, if one believes in the writings about him that others have written and his own writings, that that humans, if you're alive at this moment, you have the ability to develop that spiritual vision, as he put it, where you would quite literally see those past lives being present in this moment, and you would see how they're unfolding and they're affecting. So, according to people that I believe were definitely legitimate, and over time have only become more so, I think that awareness of, you could almost say, really not just having lived past lives, but you are living them now also, will become clear. And I think our doctors of the future, will be way more, you might say, spiritual and learned beings, like doctors who didn't know how to treat people who couldn't figure things out. When Steiner was around, used to actually send their patients to Steiner, and then he would just sit there and look at them for a bit, and he would just come and he would just explain and see what is wrong with them, and it always was ultimately their ancestry, past lives, imbalances in the present. I mean, you name it, but it was always ultimately what we're talking about in some way was actually the cause. And so yeah, you look at having food allergies now and having poisoned people in the past. It to me just makes sense, and I could see Steiner sitting there in his little like little kind of doctor's robe he might have worn at the time, a little like long white shirt or whatever, and saying, well, you were a monk and you poisoned your fellows because they pissed you off, and now you feel guilty about it, and that's why you're allergic to food. And yeah, so what we're saying, it's fun to talk about because it's basically, in my crazy reality, basically it just becomes more and more a daily reality. It's how it is, and we should ultimately develop that ability to see it. And I think we're working on it at this time.
Yeah, and we can also use astrology to look at past lives. You're not going to get the small details like we just discussed, but you can see the kind of general theme, what the past lives have been like, what the karmic challenges are in this lifetime, what areas of your life they're affecting, and ultimately what you can do about it. And we can also see the ancestral trauma in the chart. It's in the IC, which is the lowest part of the chart, and it is connected to ancestry and your family. So a good astrologer should be able to spot all of that within your birth chart and give you a remedy for it. We can also use astrology to identify past lives between two people just simply by doing a comparison of the birth charts.
Yes, and that's definitely why everybody listening, you should get a chart done by Fiona. I have the other, and I know other people who have, and definitely it's very very enlightening. Well, as we wrap things up, definitely I would say it's very important. Yes, if people do get a chart from Fiona, she can help you on your way to seeing your previous lives and how they may be affecting your present life. But one thing we were gonna wrap up on is just our current take on the plague that's going around the world right now, if we if we so desire. It does seem that, and I'll link to it in the show notes, but there was a great video. It's 5 minutes by Dr. Bruce Lipton, and it's just the truth about this madness. And he gets into how his take on it is it's just a very bad flu, and we can treat it. And, what people are really, dying from, if anything, is fear. I noticed an amazing article, coronavirus testing delayed after kits found to be contaminated by COVID-19. I'm like, people, put on your conspiracy hats there. I mean, how is that even possible in the first place? And if you
Yeah.
really wanted to ensure that people are testing positive, well, just give it to them while they take the test. That's rigged. That oh my gosh. I saw that, and that was just kind of about cosmic weather. I don't believe. I think that was allegedly. I'm just saying, people. I believe, my little belief is that was deliberate. I don't see how that accident could be made. I just don't see how it's possible. And then if we look at it, in the greater psychic weather, I'm just seeing this whole thing. Like David Icke says, if you want to know what's happening, always look at a little bit of history. And if you think about it, for the last decade, there's been this anti-vaxxer versus vaxxer, and they call you an anti-vaxxer, or they call you like a climate denier. All these terms for people who are just thinking, who just don't. I don't completely agree, so therefore I'm completely wrong. And that extreme polarization, and I'm beginning to see that with this whole pandemic thing, because there's those who are like, it's super bad, people are dying, it's the end of the world, we should all listen to Bill Gates, and I actually heard somebody say that we should all listen to Bill Gates and just stay inside. The friggin' globalist ruler has said we should all stay inside, and then more and more people who are now like the whole Mars and Aquarius saying, man, this isn't right, this doesn't feel right, and it's starting to prove out to not be right. And so I really think these next 5 weeks, are going to be quite Mars and Aries, where I still don't really know exactly what's going on, but more and more data is coming out, more facts. I mean, I wouldn't even know where to start on this in the time we have, and we don't talk about it too long. It's just, I really have been very neutral in this. I'm not like I don't believe it exists or does not exist. It's not even coming from a perspective, but just at a certain point now, not even really paying attention to it much, just living, experiencing life. You can't quite miss that it's just appearing to be a big scam. I mean, it really kind of is. And I'm seeing this polarization of literally like the Bill Gates UN army that wants us all quarantined, and people who are going, I'm not wearing a mask. I've got an immune system connected to God.
Yeah, I mean that polarization that you speak about. I mean, that's only going to get worse, really. It's something I mentioned at the start of the year when we had the Saturn Pluto conjunction. Yeah, that's, people aren't taking the middle ground, or they're not really staying neutral. So I think that's going to increase, honestly, especially in the United States, because it has some big transits coming up to its chart in the next few years. So that's something that we kind of need to be aware of. I mean, I do think that there is a virus, but I don't think that it's worthy of this complete lockdown and martial law, which is what we're all under. I think it's a virus like the flu, or maybe slightly worse than the flu. But this is something, I mean, this lockdown, this is for a different reason. Um, this, yeah, I don't buy it.
Yeah, and I think that's becoming more and more of a common theme. And even when people are just saying they don't buy it, what I think a lot of people are saying is they just question it. And I mean, to me, it's one of those situations where it's like a climate. Like, I am a climate denier and I am an anti-vaxxer, if that is what I must be labeled. But all I really am saying with both those statements, the same as if I am a pandemic denier, I guess. I don't believe in our Lord Savior, globalist God, Bill Gates. Um, I guess those are my crimes. Well, luckily I'm not burned at the stake or stoned anymore. But for my sins, I have to admit, all I really I would plead with the great jury of righteousness that I'm just thinking that's it. And there's so damn much data, and not all of it is a farce. Some of it is very good empirical research that, of course, shows that climate change, not as it's stated. Vaccines, no, they're not all benevolent and good, possibly. I'll just say that allegedly. It's my opinion. Don't want to get in trouble. And that with the whole plague thing, well, there's so much data coming out and so much research people are doing that I think it's fair enough to question the official narrative.
Yeah, for sure. Especially when they're admitting to, the news stations are admitting that they used the wrong data, and they used the wrong footage. Yeah, but people are. It's the NPC thing, isn't it? How dare you not stay indoors and wash your hands and wear a mask, and people are measuring how far away their friends are from them and their neighbors. It's just ridiculous. Like, come on. Even if it was the threat that they say it is, we have to be free. We have to be free human beings on this earth. Otherwise, there's no point in being here. Are you there?
Sorry about that. Yeah, it really is that NPC narrative, because we get into this whole issue of what you think hurts other people is always that accusation. A person can say, "Well, why can't I just question it?" And I say, "Well, with this whole plague thing, there are people who've supposedly gone into hospitals that are under lockdown, and there are all this suffering and all this pandemonium is going on. Then some smart ass teenagers take their cell phones in there and walk through the emergency room, with their cell phones and go, 'There's nobody there.'" You know, I mean, I saw it. Maybe it's fake. I don't know, but I question it. That's interesting. And then when you start seeing, like a tweet that you reposted on Facebook, and we're starting to see these endless cases of people saying, like, I had a family member or a friend die who died from, they were 83 years old and they fell over and they were, a step from death. They went to the hospital, and then the hospital said they died of coronavirus. It's like people are starting to there's just so much data coming out. How can a person, I don't know, I would just invite people, just keep an open mind because there's just so much data coming out that I really believe I've approached it without any kind of a bias. Whether I'm not pro or against, I'm not saying Corona exists or does not exist. It's just that, man, I think there's just too much conflicting data out there, and some of it is without foundation, like you mentioned. TV broadcasting, you know, emergency rooms in other countries because they couldn't find one that met the narrative here, and things like that. There's things that are proven to be baseless, but not everything. I've seen things that seem, from my layman's perspective, to be valid, that are both pro the official narrative, and then also absolutely contradicting the official narrative of the whole plague thing that's going on.
Yeah. So, I mean, really, the likes of you and I, we're never going to know. Where that's pretty much it. We will never know exactly what's going on. So why waste all of your energy and become frantic and filled with anxiety and fear by poring all over all of these articles and watching the TV? And I know what it's like to desperately want to figure out the truth about something, but I think that we just have to realize at this time we're not going to get all of the truth. So switch off your TV and go and do some past life work.
Yes, exactly. Do something that experiences life, and for every individual it's different, but you know what it is. Whatever excites you right now, go and do it. If at all possible, research it, learn it, and also. I find a lot of comfort and strength, power actually, in knowing that not knowing is power. Oh my gosh. And I would invite people just to spend some time not knowing and just doing something that for them is the experience of life, and wow,
Yes.
there you go. Then the empire loses anyway.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's been so great. We're just about an hour right now. It has been so great talking this week, Fiona, and I look forward to doing it again next week. And we might have a quite interesting guest on next week if he
Mm.
if he arrives.
Yeah, we do. Will we tell them?
Yeah, we can. Yeah, if
Yeah.
he's yeah, we might have Thomas Sheridan on with us next week. We shall
Yeah.
we shall see. Fiona's uh, I know that she can charm him into coming. I have no doubt.
Yeah.
I
Well,
can.
yeah, I did that already.
Oh, there you go. You did it. Yeah, yeah. My charm only works like once every other year, and I have to work at it. But so next week, yeah, with Thomas Sheridan. So that will be electric, of course. And God knows what will be happening in the world next week. So it's going to be great.
Yeah.
And,
You take care, Craig. It was good to talk to you.
you too. See you next week. Bye bye.
Bye.